Hi guys, it's Jill and Andrew from Wildstrong. We're just talking through today the adventure run and why we do them, what makes a good adventure run, why people really enjoy it, and why we enjoy running them. We started the adventure runs. We just run them in the summer because of the light. If you're doing daytime sessions, you could do it during the day in the winter, but it's a bit more slippery. So we'll run generally 3 or 4 across the summer months because normally our sessions run in the evenings. We started them as a kind of way to combine a lot of the skills and movements that we've been teaching over winter into a kind of more practical hands-on experience. You don't need to overthink the adventure runs. Ultimately, it's a nice thing to do with a partner, and we will try and walk through the woods and find different obstacles that you could either crawl along, balance along, get under, get over in different kinds of ways. We'll spend a bit of time shortly talking over different obstacles and what the options are. But the main why behind the adventure run is just letting people have a nice time in the woods, navigating different obstacles, and giving them a nice time to chat with a partner who's of a similar pace to them.
Yeah, I really like the adventure runs because I feel like they're the culmination of everything we do. It's a really nice opportunity to let people sort of express all the skills they've picked up over the last year, or maybe they can remember previous adventure runs from the year before and say, "Oh, well, last year I couldn't walk along the fence or I couldn't crawl up that tree or whatever, and this year I can." But it's also just a nice way to come up with creative ways for people to use their bodies and just explore space. And I really like it because when I'm walking through the woods, if I see little bits, if I'm walking the dog in the morning, I think, oh, that would be fun to try, or oh, that would be hard to get by, or I was over today and I was looking at some branches that had grown a lot, and now you could no longer walk under them. So I'm like, oh, that would be a cool place to crawl through. And it's just really nice to take that and to give people an opportunity to play around and explore for themselves.
So typically we'll do a couple of rounds or 3 depending on the time and the distance. If we're running it right here at the Wild Strong Pangborn group, we'll do 2 rounds, and the first round you'll do is probably about 800, 900 meters, maybe a kilometer all in all, and we team people up with someone who's of a similar pace and wants to go at a similar pace. So that could be somebody who wants to go out of the box really fast and run the whole thing and fly over obstacles, or it could be somebody that just wants to walk and scramble. That's completely fine. And then we'll give them the first round as a kind of exploratory round. So we'll talk through the obstacles, we'll demonstrate the movements, say if there's some vaulting, some balancing, some crawling, some lifting. We'll go around those and demonstrate them. And then we'll let them have that first round where they stop and they play on each obstacle, giving them time to sort of work out what their body's doing, maybe try and flick the switch of fear off, which means that by the time they go to the second round, in theory, you should be flying. Maybe that log that you couldn't allow yourself to get over the first round, you can now. Maybe there's, for example, here there's a big fallen beach that we get people to climb up and over, and at the top part it's not hugely high, but it's enough to make you feel a little wobbly. And some people with a fear of heights find it really frightening. Maybe the next time round they'll crawl a little bit higher and then crawl back down again. It's just a nice way to have a go the first time, and then the second time you know the course, you don't have to think so much. You can flick your brain off and just kind of fly through.
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah, that
Okay,
covers it.
so now we're going to take you around a few classic obstacles. This is not in any way a guide of what you need to do. You just need to look at your environment and see what you've got available. Think about the movements that we teach. Can you get a bit of pulling in? Can you get a bit of pushing? Can you get a bit of lifting, a bit of crawling, a bit of jumping, a bit of balancing? Just have a look around, see what you've got, and go with it. So we want the adventure run to be accessible to everyone, even if they're not runners. So you need to look at obstacles in and around where you are that people can have a go at. So here we've got a dried up burn that we were jumping over. Some people will be off jumping, and that's fine. They can just work out different ways to cross over it. Encourage people, particularly on the first time round, to spend a bit of time on each obstacle, jumping back and forth, lifting it in different ways, whatever it is. It's not a race all the way around. It's definitely try try this, see how you get on, come back and forth, don't worry about rushing it. This is one of my favourite ones. It's people find it quite wobbly, quite frightening because it does get quite high. So some people in our group will just get to where I am now and then they'll come back down and that's fine, and maybe on the second round they'll get a little bit higher. Some people will try to go over the whole thing. Generally we encourage them to do it one partner at a time, so you've got someone around helping you navigate the obstacle. This is just a scramble up a hill. People really enjoy it. It's quite fun. Can't really, oh, there we go, we are struggling. You can't really see how tricky it is, but it's quite fun. We just kind of pop it in there because people quite enjoy it. But again, just getting people to spend time on each obstacle. Here is another favourite, and this works really well because where Andrew and David are standing is the lowest part, so you get them to try vaulting on their good side, try vaulting on their bad side. As they go up the tree towards, or down the tree towards the bottom of the trunk, the tree gets a bit higher and a bit thicker. So the more experienced crew can kind of edge up and keep going onto higher jumps, which is quite fun. But really trying to make sure that people are jumping on both sides, because they're going to have one side that they love, but let them try and do it on their off side. Here we have a fence. We've got me and David. David might be the springiest man in the world, so I'm kind of struggling to get up there. There we go. He springs over it, no problem. I definitely really feel my offside on this. My brain really fights to not let me do it, so it's good for me to try and spend the time to try and get over my offside. Even if people aren't vaulting, you can just try and work out how to get over the fence, climbing over the fence, crawling under the fence. There are so many different options. So just making sure that you've got enough space between the obstacles so that you don't feel like you're being chased and you've got time to play around with each one. And then thinking, if you haven't got logs, fallen trees or anything, what have you got lying around that people can play around on? So here we just stacked up some tractor tyres, got people to play around with vaulting. Here we had an old slackline lying around, so we did sort of floor is lava. This was actually really fun and people enjoyed it. I was surprised by how many people wanted to join in on it. We had another option of doing some inverted crab crawls if you found it too frightening, you didn't want to try it, but actually people really enjoyed this obstacle and I was impressed by how many inventive ways they found to get along it. With every obstacle, you want to think about how long it's going to take people to complete. So it's good to have some slow ones like this. We had balancing and backwards balancing and crawling, and that was very slow. So you see that two partners have now caught up with each other. And then you want to have some faster ones so that they can break away and have some time to play around on each obstacle. So just think about having a mix of some really fast, some really slow. The crawling ones and the balancing ones will always take the longest because people really take time to go move through the obstacles. So just have a think about that when you're laying things out. And here we had some sandbag lifting and lapping, which people really enjoyed. Just think about what you've got lying around, and it doesn't need to be kettlebells or equipment. It can be anything that you've found lying around. If you're slightly more urban, it could be running out of your space and around some streets and then back in and just having a bit of an adventure. Ultimately, it's about having people having a nice time, chatting together and trying new obstacles. And those obstacles don't have to be the ones that you see us doing here. This is just what we've got lying around. So really just think about what have you got in your environment and what would people find fun and challenging, and you'll be surprised by how much great feedback you get from these runs.